Hey everyone, this is Ellie Crumpholtz with Freckle Education. Super excited to welcome you to today's rostering and pretest training. I can see that we still have a few folks getting logged on here, so I'll give them another moment or so. All right, let's get started. So before we dive into today's training, I do want to ensure that everyone can hear me and see the slides that I'm sharing. So if you hear my voice and see my screen, please do me a favor and find the chat box that's located at the bottom of your own screen and type in the word piggy, as in JT, our piggy mascot, who you should be seeing on the screen waving to you now. All right, the piggies are rolling in here, so that means it's safe for me to get started. All right, I always begin each of my trainings with this slide. Again, my name is Ellie, and I'm part of the Freckle team. But most importantly, this slide has my email address. And I want you to have my email address because today's training is short. It's only a half hour, and we can't possibly cover everything that there is to know about Freckle and about rostering and pretest during that time. So this is going to be a short tactical training, and you may have some follow-up questions for me afterwards. And so I invite you to write down my email address, which is ecrumpholtz@freckle.com, and contact me personally. I'm always happy to assist you with any follow-up questions that you may have. And with that, I'd like to just re-emphasize our mission. Freckle was founded in 2013, and our mission has remained unchanged ever since that time. And that is to ensure that every student gets a world-class education. And we really believe that you as educators are the key to doing so. And we've created a differentiation platform to empower you to differentiate instruction for your students. Today's training is a bit focused, and so specifically we'll be covering some rostering and pretest basics. So you'll learn how to create your class roster, some rostering tips and tricks, some pretest tips and tricks, and then we'll reserve a few minutes at the end of this training for Q&A and answer any questions that you may have. So before we dive into the teacher dashboard, I always like to tailor my trainings as best as I can. So I invite you to find that chat box again. And I'd love it if you'd share with me the grade that you teach and your experience with Freckle. So for instance, I might type in 5th grade if I teach 5th grade, and new if I'm completely new to Freckle. I just want to get a better sense of who's on the line. Okay, it looks like we have 3rd grade teacher, 5th grade, actually a lot of elementary school, a handful of middle school, and it looks like primarily mostly new Freckle users and those with moderate levels of experience as well. So this is really great. We're about to transfer over to the teacher dashboard, and so this will help me tailor my training there. So bear with me as I move on over here. So you will access your teacher dashboard at classroom.freckle.com. Again, that web address is classroom.freckle.com. If it's your very first time here and you haven't yet created a Freckle account, you'll scroll all the way to the bottom of your screen and you'll notice that there's a create an account button. And if you click on it, it will walk you through the steps of creating an account. It's super simple. You'll enter your email address, create a password, and from there on out, you'll really be good to go. And the next time that you log in, you'll visit the same web address, classroom.freckle.com, and you'll simply log in using the credentials that you created. So your associated email address and password. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to enter my password. And I am getting logged on. This is what the teacher dashboard looks like. So the very first action that you'll want to take is you'll want to add your students to a class roster. So we'll begin by creating our roster. So you'll notice in the left-hand side of your screen, under this dashboard area, the second option down is roster. I'm going to go ahead and click that button, and that's how we'll begin the process. You'll notice that there's a plus sign button here that says add a new class. So I'm going to click that, and that will walk me through the process of adding my class. You have the option to import from Google Classroom if that's something that you're currently using. But the manual entry is super easy, and I'll walk you through that as well. So first things first, I'm going to give my class a name. I'm going to say 4th grade, since we had so many elementary school teachers. And I'm going to press next. And then I'll specify the grade level for my class. So if it wasn't already evident in my class name, I'm going to click on my grade level that I'm teaching and press continue. Now my class has been created, and I just need to add students to that class roster. So this is super easy. I'm simply going to type in my student's first name and their last name and press enter. I do have the option to copy and paste from Excel. So if I have all of my student data in one place and you want to just do a simple copy paste, you definitely have that option. But I'm going to show you how easy it is to manually enter your students' names. So I'm going to say student 1, press add student, student 2, add student, student 3, add student. And you'll notice as I add the students in my classroom, their grade level is carrying with them, as is their language. So if I want to set my students' language to Spanish, I have the option to do so here, and I can just make that change. But I'm going to leave it at the default, which is English. And again, you'd continue entering your students' first names and last names until you've done so for your entire class, at which point you then press this done button. Voila, my class has been created. And you'll notice that what appears is a dialog box with a 6-character code. That is your class code. It's automatically generated, and that's actually how your students will log into their student dashboard. So a pro tip here is to make sure that that code is noted somewhere prominent within your classroom. So it's really helpful to display that information in a place where all students can easily see it, and it makes the logon process for them even more easy and efficient. So again, once you create your class, add your students to that class, a class code will be automatically generated, and you want to note that code somewhere so that your students are able to log in very efficiently. I'm going to X out of this dialog box, and I'm going to scroll down on my roster page and confirm that my class has been added. Yes, indeed, here it is. There's that 4th grade class that I created with all of my students. And like I mentioned before, one of the pro tips is to make sure that you display that class code somewhere so that your students have easy access to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click this class options gear next to my class name. And then the second option down is print login cards. So I'm going to click that option. And that does just what you think it does. And it generates login cards for each of your students, noting that unique 6-character code. So one of the things that you can do is you can print these cards and send them home with your students so that students can easily access Freckle and continue to practice at home. You can also print those login cards and place them at your students' desks so that it's always right in front of them, and it'll avoid the hassle of answering any of their questions about, hey, where's my class code? But perhaps you want to require an extra layer of security for your students. Maybe you want something beyond that 6-digit class code. You have the option to create passwords and require that students use those passwords to log into their student dashboard. So I'm going to go back to my roster and scroll all the way down to that class that I had just created, which was my 4th grade class. And in this class options section, you'll notice that one of the drop-down options is set password protection. So I'm going to click on that, and a dialog box appears. And basically what that's saying is that Freckle will automatically generate a unique password for each of your students. And if I click this checkbox, it's going to require that they use that unique password to gain access to their student dashboard. So I'm going to press save. And you can see that, yes, indeed, unique passwords were generated for each of the students within my class. And they'll use that password to log into their student dashboard. Again, this is only if you want an extra layer of security. Or perhaps students are logging into each other's accounts with their class code in rare cases, and you want them to have a unique password that's only known to them. Now that these passwords are created, you can share those with each of their individual students, and that's how they'll gain access to their portal. But maybe you want to customize these passwords. Maybe for student 1, you really don't like that their password is red penguin and you want it to be something different that you created. You can absolutely do that. You're just going to navigate to this gear icon next to that particular student and then click Edit Student. Here you can edit the student's first name, last name, their grade, their language, and you'll notice at the bottom there's their password. So if I wanted to change their password to something more generic or complex, I can create my own password, press save, and now that has become the student's password, and they'll be prompted for that password anytime they try to gain access to their student dashboard. So changing passwords is as easy as that. What I want to show you next is how you can share and transfer students. So if sticking with this same class here that I just created, I'm going to click on this class options dropdown. And let's say I want to share a class with a teacher. I have the ability to do so. I'm going to click on this share class with a teacher and walk through the steps. Now, why might I want to share a class with a teacher? Well, perhaps I co-teach. That's the most obvious explanation. And sharing a class with a fellow colleague, sharing a class with a fellow colleague will give them access to all of that student's data so that we're both seeing the same exact thing when looking at that student's pretests, practice, and student data. So if I want to go through this process, I can see here that I can select all of my students within the class to share. I can deselect some, so I have the option to share my entire class or just certain students in particular. And then I'm going to specify what teacher I'm sharing this with. So this has to be someone with who's a current Freckle user with a Freckle account. So I'm going to specify my teacher, and I can do that within the same school or across schools and even across districts as well. So I'm going to enter the appropriate information, and then I'd press the share button, and it would immediately share that student info with my fellow co-teacher. Beyond co-teachers, this is really helpful to share your students with an instructional coach. So if there's someone who's tutoring your students or working with them, coaching them, you can share those particular students with that individual. And again, they'll be seeing the same exact reports and student data as well. Imagine that I want to transfer students to a different teacher. I have that ability. Again, I'm going to click on class options and select transfer students to a teacher. This is something that I would want to do perhaps if I were teaching last year and my students had moved on and I wanted to share their data with a colleague. I could do that. And what's really great about that is that all of their practice, their pre-tests, their level, all of that data will carry over to the new teacher. And so that new teacher will definitely thank you. They'll be starting at a place where they have all of that insight going in. And your students will thank you as well, or your former students, I should say, because it's not only their data that carries over with them, but it's their coin balance as well. And if you've been using Freckle in your classroom for a while, you understand that students earn coins as they practice, which they can redeem for different items in the Piggy store, and they go crazy for that. And so both your teachers will thank you for sharing all of that, transferring all of that student data to them, and your students will thank you as well for maintaining their coin balance. So the process for transferring students is pretty much the same as sharing. You'll just select the particular students that you want to transfer, and then you'll note the teacher and school. And again, this has to be a teacher that's currently using Freckle or that creates a new account. Once I selected the appropriate students, I'd press transfer, and they are transferred from me. So I'm going to lose all of that data and hand it off to someone else. Versus if I'm sharing students, I still have access to that student data. Perhaps I want to share or transfer just individual students versus an entire class. You can also initiate this process by clicking next to the student's name, and again pressing share or transfer, and it will walk you through those same steps as well. So there's two areas that you can share and transfer your students. So the other thing I want to show you relates to pretests. So you know that when students log into their student dashboard for the first time, they'll automatically be prompted to take pretests. And those pretests will place them at a preliminary level. And that level is auto-adjusted over time as they continue to practice with Freckle. You, the teacher, have the ability to reset those pretests if you like. Perhaps one of your students took the pretest and it placed them at a level that you don't think is appropriate. And so your suspicion is that maybe they just had an off day. You can reset that individual student's pretest levels. And what that will initiate is it will have those students retake the pretest the next time that they log in. That's super easy to do, and I'm going to demonstrate that not in my 4th grade class here, because none of these students have taken the pretest yet. This class was just created, so I'm going to scroll up to one of my other classes. To reset pretest for a student, you'd find that particular student, you'd click the gear icon next to their name, and you'd say Reset Student Options. Then I'm going to decide which options I want to reset. Specify those specific options and press close. Again, that will prompt that particular student to retake their student pretest next time they log into their dashboard. So with that, let's go ahead and move over to the student dashboard and see what that looks like. All right, students will access their student dashboard at student.freckle.com. If they don't remember that web address, they can always do an online search for Freckle Student Dashboard and they'll arrive in the same place. You'll notice that they are prompted to log in with their first name, their last name, and that 6-digit class code. As you know, you can also require them to log in with a password as demonstrated beforehand. And there's also a QR code option as well. So if you'd rather your students log in with a QR code, and this is especially helpful for younger students, you have the ability to do that as well. All right, I am logged into my student portal here. And the portal that you're looking at is for a student in 3rd to 5th grade. So this is what the portal would look like for 3rd to 5th graders. It's going to look a little bit different for students grades K to 2 and 6 to 8. And so the design shifts a bit to be more age appropriate depending upon what grade that particular student is in. You'll notice that this is my home page here, and along the bottom, my navigation is the home page, math, ELA, and I have a section for assignments that have been assigned by my teacher. I'm going to click on math, and you'll see here that if I'm logging in for the very first time as a student, I'll be prompted to take a short pretest. Again, that's a diagnostic that places me at a preliminary level. Based on my results, I'll continue practicing at that level and it will auto adjust over time. You don't have to do anything special on your end as the teacher to initiate that pretest. It will automatically be initiated once a student logs in and clicks into a particular section here. So I haven't completed my pretest for measurement and data. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. It says ready to start the pretest. I'll say yes. And I'm quickly going to just click through the answers here as quick as I can to show you how short this pretest is. All right, as easy as that, I will have completed my student pretest. And based on my results and performance, it's placing me here at this level. So I'll continue practicing on measuring length. Some students who have taken the pretest will be placed at a more beginner level. So you may have students working at levels that are more beginner, and you may have other students in your classroom who are more advanced and working at more advanced levels. If I wanted to continue practice as this particular student, I'd simply click here and it would give me more questions to continue practicing at the specific level that is appropriate for me. Some of the pretest tips and tricks that I want to share with you from our teachers is that some teachers like to have their students take all of the pretests at once. So if I click back to math here, you'll notice that for each of these different domains, there is a pretest. Some teachers like to set aside a certain amount of time and just have students take all of their pretests for each of these different sections at once. So that's one way you could handle the pretests. Other teachers like to have their students pick a particular domain. So the teacher will assign the domain and have all students take the pretest in that particular domain, because that's what the teacher will be teaching at that given point of time. And then they'll have students take the pretests at other domains later in the year when they begin teaching in those particular areas. So it's really up to you as a teacher to decide the best strategy for you and for your classroom needs. All right, we really breezed through that training. What I want to do now is just leave some time for any questions that you may have. So feel free to find that chat box and type in any questions that may be on your mind. So there's a question here about, let's see, about the difference between teacher edition of Freckle and school edition of Freckle. So school edition is our premium version of the product. It is a paid version, whereas the teacher edition is our free version. Everything that you've seen today, you can do in the free version of Freckle. Again, creating an account is free. The main difference between the teacher edition and the school edition is that the school edition has unlimited assignments and reports. So that's the primary difference. If you're just getting started, I encourage you to create a free account and use that, become well versed in it. And then if at any time you're interested in exploring the school edition, you can always reach out to our team and we'd be happy to tell you more. All right, it looks like those are the majority of the questions that I have here. What I want to point you to now is our webinars page. So if you want to revisit any of our recorded sessions on this topic or another, you can access those recordings at freckle.com/webinars. That's where we store our library of recordings. And finally, you already have my personal email address, but if you feel like reaching out to our support team, you can do so at any time at support@freckle.com. Our support team is super responsive. We're here for any questions or concerns that you may have. And so if at any point you are interested in exploring something further or you just have generic questions, feel free to send us an email and someone will get back to you right away. So that is it for today's rostering and pretest training. I hope you come back and visit us for a future training soon. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your day.